Hey guys, thanks for checking out another update. It's been a couple months because it's been insanely busy for us. So this is your April and May update, kind of all in one. The last one came out in March. So first thing, I turned 35 years old now. So that's big news. I'm getting older, I'm finally growing up and I'm becoming an adult. All joking aside, we went from Houston all the way to Denver, and in the middle we hit Austin, Dallas, Amarillo, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Taos, and Colorado Springs, Pueblo, and Denver. So what that means is we've driven well over 5,000 miles in the first 13 months of our being in this camper. On the way up here, we lost the tires on our truck. Thankfully it didn't happen in motion, but I could tell after stopping that they were pretty bent out of shape, and our tires that came on the truck were a little bit bigger than stock. So I just went ahead and did all four wheels and all four tires on our truck in order to get a little more torque, a little better gas mileage, a little better overall ride, and I got some really nice tires so that this isn't going to happen again for a very long time. I thought I had another 10,000 miles on those tires, but I was wrong. If that's something you think you might be able to help us with, we could really use a little bit of a boost there. So if that's something you're interested in, just go ahead and reach out. I can share the receipt with you. That was an unexpected $2,000 expense. A little more of why that makes sense and why I'm asking you for help on that in a little bit. In getting all the way up to Denver from Houston, we got to see some really cool stuff as a family I'm excited to tell you about. You'll see some of the pictures here scrolling, but in Amarillo, we got to see the Palo Duro Canyon, which I'd never heard of, but is apparently second only to the Grand Canyon. So the kids loved that. We spent half a day just hiking and exploring. Izera faced off a diamondback, and thankfully nothing happened, but it was too close and too scary. I hope that doesn't ever happen again. All of our hearts were coming out of our chest for about a half hour after that. We also got to see just a little bit of Albuquerque, but then we stopped in Santa Fe, checked out downtown, and then went up to an overlook that looked over the whole town of Santa Fe, and that was incredible. Really cool view. Downtown area is just a beautiful little spot. And then on our way up to Taos, which is in the northern part of New Mexico, we didn't even know Taos existed, much less that on our way we'd be driving right along the Rio Grande, and then you come out over this 7,000 foot crest and you see a big huge flat space, and right there was the Rio Grande River Gorge just cracked open in the middle of the earth. Looks like another version of the Grand Canyon almost, but at the deep bottom of it you see a river, and so we went over that bridge and checked it out and got to eat a little lunch picnic out there. Just amazing things we never really knew about and got to see, and all of our eyes are just popping out of our heads. We get to park on people's ranches, at brewery parking lots and winery parking lots, random parking lots sometimes, as well as cool little campsites anywhere you're going. And a lot of people are so generous and so welcoming. Some people have had us into their house for meals. Some people have just come out to talk and been so generous and said, you can explore the whole ranch, anything you want. They gave our kids rides on golf carts, and they got to go feed catfish and see longhorn cattle. And man, it's just been an incredible journey to experience all of this. We also got to see the Garden of the Gods, which was completely awe-inspiring. And we are now camped, as you can kind of see behind me. That is the foothills of the Rockies. If you go over into Denver a little more, you can see all the big white-capped mountains behind. But in about a 15-minute drive, I can be up on top of a mountain looking down over top of all of Denver, and it's just such a beautiful thing out here. And the other place we saw while we were here, when we got to Colorado Springs actually, is we went to the place called the Paint Mines, which is out in the plains, but it's this space where in all these kind of rolling hills and plains, there's these eroded areas where it kind of looks like a gorge, but it's all eroded away from water, and it has revealed all of these different colors of rocks from all of the different years of and ages even of layers of dirt that got built up and built up. It used to be under an ocean, and so you see all these reds and pinks and kind of blues, and incredible. And we got to do that hike for almost 4 hours with James and Joy, Allison's sister Joy, and their two little boys, James and Warren. So right before we hit the road, I flew from Houston over to Jackson, Mississippi. This was back in April, early April, and I got to interview one of my top 3 favorite theologians. And we got an hour and a half of video content, raw footage, where I'm sitting in there asking him questions and we're going back and forth. I'm very excited about this project because it's going to help encourage a ton of people everywhere with the message of Jesus, with how good the gospel is, from a PhD scholar theologian, but someone who really cares deeply about the everyday person, someone who's not going to go read theology books. This is a message that needs to get out. So that was a moment of elation for me to be able to sit in the presence of someone like that face to face, ask them questions and get to respond and hear their responses. I'm very excited to share that project. We'll send it out whenever we're done editing all of that footage, but what an incredible experience for me. And the whole Lark team came along and we made it a journey together. And the guy's name is C. Baxter Kruger. And he ended up spending, I counted it up, 16 hours in conversation with us, eating dinner, drinking coffee, grabbing a couple beers. He let us really pick his brain about a lot of things. We sat in his office, we sat in his town, we went all over the place. And my heart was just overflowing and exploding with gratitude that he would take the time to do that with us. So yeah, very, very cool. And that's going to encourage a lot of people. That's a project I've put a lot of time and effort into. A couple more projects. I flew back to Houston, hung out with my family for a few more weeks. And then I flew out again to Atlanta at the end of April, actually into Savannah. We did a Lark event, Russ Johnson and I. Russ is the founder of Lark, if you don't remember. We did an event in Savannah in a guy's backyard. His name's Tom Neary. He was planting a church and decided to start a donut shop instead. And so we've come alongside him to encourage him, to equip him, to help him with building relationships, with sharing good news with people that already believe it or don't, whichever it is. And so we showed up to have an event in his backyard, got about 6 people around and shared some stories, got to meet each other. And when people are in that moment of asking a question or processing something, you can see they're a little bit afraid to bring it up. But our favorite thing to do is say, hey, it's okay. Your questions matter. Your questions aren't going to hinder God from loving you. They don't change the fact that He's already saved you. God's just wanting you to see the light. The light is that He's in you. The light is that He loves you. So that was a very cool encounter and a very encouraging night for a couple of those folks. We then drove from Savannah to Atlanta, where we had a lunch meeting with one of my dearest and best friends. His name is Ethan. And Ethan, just 60 minutes with the guy it blows your mind because he's such a kind and gentle and friendly friend. But he's also an incredibly intelligent and he's a very devoted person to getting good news into the lives of people. Well, we went to northern Atlanta after lunch, and this is one of the best parts. This hat is from Reformation Brewery, and I have a friend who, I'll show you a picture here. We parked in his driveway about 8 months ago for a week. I got to meet him through the Lark emails. He just reached out and was looking for some encouragement and some good news. We built a relationship, and well, next thing you know, he's hosting a Lark event at Reformation Brewery, where a guy named Spencer, he was a pastor, did a pastorate for several years, ended up actually ending that version of his career to start a brewery in a place where craft breweries were not even a thing yet. And lo and behold, 6-7 years later, we're showing up to hang out, put on a little event in his space, and we realize we need to interview this guy. We need to ask him some questions. So I put together a video shoot with him where he shared his story, and this brewery is incredible. And my favorite moment was when he said, and it's on film, you'll eventually get to see it once we get it edited. He said, I now employ 63 beautiful people, and it is my job to love them as friends and to be here as their boss is someone who's for them. And when you look at the brewery, there's this little bar area with almost no seats inside of it, and then a huge indoor seating section up a level, and then a big outdoor patio, and then there's a huge yard just full, and I mean full of patio furniture. You could probably fit 300 people at any given point, just sitting there drinking a great craft brew with all their friends, with family. Huge park across the street so you can grab a beer, take your kids, go to the playground, go to the field. And they have built this communal space where connections are always happening. Strangers are becoming friends, friends are coming together to hang. And we got to have an event and about 20 people showed up. And we just dropped a 200 proof grace message on this little group of people. And actually, probably about a month later, they're gonna meet again. And there's this kind of budding community starting up there where they're mutually encouraging each other, also becoming friends with each other, but helping each other to spread good news in their own lives and in their own ways. I just love that. That's what this is all about. All of the work that we've been putting in, that's the kind of stuff that, man, that just gets me so excited, and I'm so happy about it. So cheers to Jonathan, who hosted us, Spencer, who owns the brewery, and then one more. We drove then from Woodstock, Georgia, over to Greenville, South Carolina, where Russ and I did another video shoot. We did an interview with someone who's an addict and is still an addict, but who has been having their entire life really just broken open by the good news that God loves him, even though he hasn't beat his addiction yet. And he may never actually be free of it completely. So he and his wife sat down on a couch and answered a bunch of questions that we asked them, sharing their story. And so that's another really powerful thing that we're going to share out. So I think you can sort of see what a lot of the fruit of my labor has been, is capturing stories, getting in people's spaces to encourage them, but then also using those stories to send out to more people so they can see, man, this is what it means that I'm free in Christ. This is what it means that Christ is in me, because of nothing that I've ever done, but because that's how creation works. So that's what we're doing. And the final thing I want to say is we are in kind of a bit of transition period. As I've said in the past, our funding has started to dwindle. We now have our consistent monthly giving gets us a part-time salary for me, but that's it. A lot of the single gifts that we've had are no longer closing the gap to get me to a full-time salary. So part of coming to Denver is, in Colorado Springs, is us exploring where we're going to land, because we are now in the process of figuring out if it's only part-time, I have to either close the gap or Allison does, as well as we're trying to get her to enter into and finish a master's program, Master's of Social Work. So two things. Number one, consider increasing your giving or passing on this message and our ministry to someone you know who might have some dollars that they would like to contribute to the encouragement of humans everywhere through the good news of Jesus Christ, the good news that Christ is in you, the good news that God's love for you is sure, and that you don't have to live a life of anxiety anymore. We really need a lot of help right now, and that $2,000 expense on fixing the tires earlier than I thought I would need to has really slowed us down. I've got about a month and a half, 2 months left of funding to be able to close the gap and get into our next phase, wherever that is, whatever that is. So lastly, I just ask you to consider praying for us. We are in the moment of decision, if you will, and we got to figure out what city we're going to live in, what kind of work we're going to do, where Allison's going to go to school for her master MSW. We don't really know what the answer is right now, and we're going to continue to do our ministry in whatever capacity we can. So that's our ask. That's where we're at right now. We love you guys so much, and especially those of you that have just been steadily giving monthly. You have made this ministry possible, steady. You have made it something that it's been an incredible experience for a lot of people. And I am endlessly grateful for the work that I've been allowed to do, for the projects that I've been allowed to bring about and to bring to completion, and that are still yet to be done. So we love you guys. That's it for now. We'll talk to you again soon.